Tyrants mess with a Navy SEAL, unaware she's stronger than 100 men combined. The night was black as oil, the moon hidden behind thick clouds. Only the cold flicker of the neon lights above the remote gas station cast pale shadows on the cracked asphalt. Abba Carter stepped out of the dusty vehicle, her gaze cold, her movements calm. Her body spoke of discipline, her posture of caution. She was on her way back to base after weeks spent with her ill father. It was supposed to be a brief stop, a moment of calm before her next mission. But fate had other plans. 4 men exited a dark SUV at the same time, drunk on power and the delusion of being untouchable. They spotted the slender woman at the gas pump, saw a game, a thrill, not their downfall. "Well, all alone tonight, sweetheart?" One grinned, stepping closer. Abba didn't reply. She'd seen that look before, the look of a predator who thought the prey was already between its teeth. But she was no prey. She was a storm in human form. The air grew tense as the first man placed his hand on the roof of her car. Seconds later, his body flew through the air and hit the concrete hard. The other 3 froze, their drunken confidence replaced by fear. Abba stood still, her gaze like steel. "Final warning," she said quietly, almost whispering. But the second man charged and was taken down by a precise kick to the chest. When the third one lost his nerve, it was already too late. The night that had begun so quietly exploded into action. Abba Carter hadn't looked for a fight, but she ended it, efficiently, mercilessly, without spilling a drop of her control. Abba left the lifeless bodies of the 4 men behind her, her steps calm, her breathing steady. But deep inside, something had changed. The attack hadn't been random. It was too coordinated, too confident in their approach. She had fought wolves in Afghanistan, endured endless fire in Syria. Yet this feeling of being watched was new. When she glanced into the rearview mirror, she saw nothing. No lights, no shadows. And still she knew this was only the beginning. Just hours later, a phone call confirmed her worst fears. Marcus, a former superior, was on the line. His voice was tense. Those guys worked for Rourke, and Rourke never works alone. Rourke, the name was poison. A cartel boss with ties to politics, the military, and the underworld. Abba had crossed him once. Now the past had caught up with her. She wasn't just one target among many. She was the target. And this time they weren't coming with knives or crude remarks. They were coming with weapons, with strategy, with bloodlust. A black SUV appeared in the rearview mirror. No license plate, no hesitation. She hit the brakes hard. The vehicle sped past, drifting dangerously close to her bumper. War had taught her to react in seconds. Abba jerked the wheel, overtook the car, and disappeared into a side alley, like a shadow in a storm. The chase had begun, through abandoned industrial zones, through the silence of suburbia, through nights without hope. She was back in a mission, but this time with no orders, no backup, no rules. The hunter had become the hunted, but she was ready. Abba knew she couldn't waste a second. That very night she dug through old contacts, secured satellite data, and logged into military surveillance systems she technically no longer had access to. Piece by piece she assembled the puzzle, names, locations, movements. Every clue was like a drop of blood on fresh snow. Clear, cold, dangerous. This wasn't just a cartel. It was a network, an invisible system of bribery, fear, and power. And at its center, a man no one had ever seen. A phantom who always seemed one step ahead of her. The trail led her to an old warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Abba observed the site for hours, her senses razor sharp, just like in the field. Figures gathered there who would never normally share a room. Corrupt cops, ex-military operatives, local politicians. It was as if an entire state had entrenched itself behind Rourke and his shadowy handlers. Abba slipped through a side gate, silent, invisible. Inside, she overheard conversations about weapons shipments, bought judges, and a new plan. and about her. "She's closer than we thought," said a voice. "If she finds him, it's all over." Her heart pounded. He did exist, the one pulling the strings. But Abba also knew, the closer she got, the greater the danger became. She was alone, no unit, no communications. Only her training, her resolve, and an iron will carried her through this shadow world. And as she melted back into the darkness, a thought sparked in her mind. What if this phantom wasn't just in her way? What if he had chosen her as a pawn, as a test, as a threat that now had to be eliminated? But Abba Carter didn't disappear, not without the final shot. The rain lashed against the windows of the skyscraper as Abba reached the top floor. Wind tugged at her coat, but she moved with the same unwavering determination as always. Each step a silent promise. This would end. The room before her was bathed in cool light, soft music playing in the background. And there, in a leather armchair by the window, sat him, the mastermind. Gray temples, calm gaze, an aura of power and calculation. "You took your time," he said with a smile that held no warmth. "I wanted you to find me." Abba raised her weapon, but he didn't even flinch. "If you pull that trigger, you're just like me." But Abba hadn't come to debate. She had come to end it. With a single word, chaos erupted. He had armed men ready, but none were faster than her reflexes. Every strike, every shot, every move was the echo of her training, the embodiment of years spent becoming something she barely recognized under the weight of her trauma. The mastermind disappeared through a hidden passage, but Abba followed, down corridors of glass and steel, until they stood face to face, close, breath to breath. And in that moment, no strategy was needed, only resolve. Blood dripped onto the floor. Her hands trembled from tension. "You used my life like a tool," she whispered. "Now you'll learn what happens when a tool turns on its master." The final fight was brutal, raw, merciless. When he finally collapsed, wheezing, defeated, he gasped, "There are others. I'm just the beginning." Abba said nothing. She turned and left him in the dirt of his own fortress. She was wounded, exhausted, but standing tall. Outside, dawn was breaking. No applause, no medals, just the quiet triumph of having survived, and the certainty that she would never run again. Abba Carter was never the heroine sung about in legends. She was a warrior, forged from pain, discipline, and sleepless nights. But it was those very scars that made her stronger than any elite force, more relentless than any army. She had learned that true power doesn't lie in striking back, but in surviving, rising, and staring evil in the eye without blinking. Her victory wasn't for glory, it was for justice, for those who could never fight for themselves. This story reminds us, never underestimate silence. Never underestimate someone who has fallen but stands back up. Abba is no myth. She is living proof that one determined soul can bring down the facade of an entire empire, if she's unafraid to lose everything to do what's right. Told was the story of Abba Carter, a woman who never gives up, who survives every threat and shows us what it truly means to stay unbreakable. If you want more stories like this, full of tension, courage, and action, then, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell so you don't miss a thing. The hunt isn't over. Abba Carter will return. Until then, stay sharp, because not everyone who looks weak is truly defenseless. Thanks for watching.